I'm thrilled and excited to be able to present to you Mr. Frank Darabont. Thank you both so much.
We didn't have enough money in the budget for music and credits beyond, just that one cue. So I thought, sound effects.
It's a good cue.
Well, thank you.
That can dance.
I wrote that myself. No,
I didn't realize you were that multi-talented.
no, just a big fan of that can dance.
So let's just begin by talking about that ending.
You go.
I just slipped in and caught the last 10 minutes or so because I got here a little early. Kind of wish that I hadn't. Sense memory, and I'll come flooding back, and I watched that. It was really hard. That's powerful, man. Still, like, it's been a while since I've seen it, but God, that's really good shit. Man, what an ending! This movie came out on Thanksgiving weekend. Can you imagine the brilliance of the fuckers that put that together and thought, we are going to release this on Thanksgiving weekend? And all the families eat turkey and they go to the movies together. Man.
Because nothing says the holidays like flesh-eating tentacles. Yeah, it was a crazy. Is this working? Are we good here? Okay. It was the one thing I didn't convince them of is that Thanksgiving was not. Everyone's wanting to go see Fred Claus and take their families, and nobody's going to give a movie with a very specific, sort of chancy, dour outlook at chance. Nonetheless, we did. Yeah, exactly. Nonetheless, the film did, we made it on a very low budget, so the film did very well, overall.
Well, it's interesting, because John Carpenter was here last night, and he was talking about audiences don't like dour endings.
Yeah, I know. I think the ending of The Thing is one of the greatest endings of all time. I love the ambiguity of it. I love the sophistication of it. Why don't we just wait a while? That's awesome. But as Stephen King said to me when I sent him the script and said, Steve, what do you think? I've taken kind of a left turn with the ending. It's based on something he actually wrote in the story, so it's not entirely true that I came up with this whole cloth. There is a paragraph in there that alludes to this as an option. And I said, listen, if you hate the ending, I won't make the movie. And he read it, and he really loved it. And he said that he wished he thought of that ending himself, which was a huge compliment. Ultimately, what he said was really cool. He said every generation or so, there ought to be a movie that just dares pissing the audience off, that gives them not what they want. And he, in that sense, he likened it to Night of the Living Dead, which is one of the great kick in the nuts endings of all time. It comes out of nowhere and you go, oh shit. But that's one of the reasons the movie's so powerful, I think. I'm not comparing this to Night of the Living Dead at all, but just in the sense that Steve King endorsed the idea of this, angry and bleak ending. And I guess if Shawshank Redemption is the on the scale, on the mathematical equation of that being the value of hope, and this is the danger, the abandonment of hope. It's almost sort of like a thematic bookend for that film.
And I was going to ask you why this was the right ending for the movie, from your point of view.
When I first read the story back in 1980, it was in an anthology called Dark Forces, edited by Kirby McCauley, and it was a very, very good anthology of short fiction. And Steve Sword was the standout in that for me, clearly. And this was before he even had a career as a writer or had hope of ever directing a movie. you always play that game with yourself, you know, like you try to imagine what the movie would be. In the case of this, I felt it's a brilliant story, but that opening, that very ambiguous ending left me wanting some conclusiveness. So when I started thinking, okay, what would my ending be if I were ever to tell this story, if I were ever privileged to recount this joke, what is the punchline that I would give it? And this is the ending that popped into my head, you know, back in 1980. And it's honestly the only ending that ever made sense to me. And if I'd been willing to change the ending, you know, I could have gotten a lot more money to make the movie. I actually might have been able to pay myself a salary.
We all would have actually got paid.
Yeah.
But all the actors wanted that ending. I mean, we all were, you know, we all loved it. I mean, all the actors were just so on board with that. It was never any talk of doing it any other way. You know, and I grew up on the Twilight Zone, you know, and old EC comic books, and that great, you know, what Al Feldstein called the snap ending. It was always something that really turned me on. So, you know, when I read this script, it was like, oh yes, you know, because and I was one of those kids who always used to walk out of the movie theater going, everybody should have died. that was like my mantra. I just, you know, I was hungry for those dark, kind of abysmal kind of endings that were bleak, and to me that was sort of truer to life. You know, life hurts, life's unexpected, and I wanted to see that. You know, so all my favorite films were always films that did that did kind of snap you into another direction and didn't have the pat Hollywood stuff. You know, and so that's why it's one of my favorite films that I've been a part of.
It does have a very Serling influence. I've been very influenced by Serling. I also was a Twilight Zone kid growing up, but I was always so responding to the writing, you know, in those. And there was always that, you know, that thing that Serling did, that acerbic, ironic thing that says, well, if you think things are bad now, well, fuck you, because they can be worse. And you know, you get that brilliant wrinkle, you know, at the end of Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes. You get that brilliant wrinkle when, you know, Burgess Meredith's glasses fall off and they break. And you go, oh no! So definitely, there's this story. Even when I read it, I remember in 1980 when I first read it, I thought, oh, okay. Steve kind of jumped into this subgenre of people in a pressure cooker that is very much like Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, that wonderful Twilight Zone episode, very much like, you know, Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, and that sort of thing. And it kind of had, it's got a little Serling dust on it, I think, you're right.
So you looked at the story and wanting to make this film for so long. When you actually sat down to write the screenplay, was it something that came together relatively quickly for you? Yeah, pretty much. But then, you know, I mean, so did Shawshank. When I adapted that, it was 8 weeks, you know, from start to finish. And I basically shot the script that I wrote. Green Mile was an even more massive, you know, tapestry, and that was 8 weeks. I don't like messing around too long, because writing is not the funnest process for me. I like to get in and wallow in the razor blades and glass, you know, broken glass of the writing process, and then have it finished, have it done. So I'm not one of these guys who really likes to spend a year crafting a screenplay. If I have a really good, solid story, you know, from which to go, there's absolutely no excuse for taking longer than 8 weeks. Do you write with actors in mind?
Oh yeah. In fact, and sometimes it's in advance, but sometimes those actors come to you as you're writing. And Tom came to me as I was writing this script,
Now, I'm not just saying that because you're here.
Send it to me. That's what he said when you sent it to me. And it's one of those great, rare occurrences in an actor's career when they say, "Hey, I've got something for you," and you read it, and it's like, "Oh yes, this is fucking great." Yeah, it was a joy.
I've had that happen twice. I had Tom Hanks form in my head when I was writing Green Mile. I had Tom Jane form it when I was writing this.
So
So
you're
if your name's Tom,
Yeah. Get famous. I'll write you something.
so what were your thoughts about the character and when you read the script, and was this someone you instantly connected to?
it's one of, like Frank said, it's one of those pressure cooker situations, and you kind of watch everybody. For me, I read it as a parable of about fear and how people, about our own human. It's basically a parable about being human and what happens when we're forced to deal with who we really are. It's kind of like jam everybody all together and sort of like let the rats start to eat each other. Hindsight's always 20/20. I would have loved to have played him a little more sort of nebbish at the beginning, so you could really see him turn into this horrible. You see the animal come out in people. You see the veneer of society sort of fall away, and then whatever people's sort of beliefs are that they cling to, like lifeboats, like life rafts. With the Marcia Gay Harden and that whole thing, how people sort of invent stuff to cling to when they're afraid, and how that can ultimately destroy you. It's the fear that kills you in the end.
I'm really glad you played it the way you played it. I'm really satisfied with that. Because everything you say about the film is true, but it's also for me, it's a very angry and political movie too.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that, I was getting something off my chest here, so if you hated the ending, I apologize for the 2 hours of your life I took. But film sometimes should be the art form of self-expression. I believe very strongly in that, and some of my favorite films are. There's also this is an angry cry from the heart from a humanist who is really pretty pissed off about the fact that all the reasonable people seem to be marginalized, ground under the heel of the extremists. Pick your political example. Pick your example of oppressive religious extremism or political extremism or any kind of extremism. And it's the people who are. I like that you are the most rational, good guy in the movie. I like that you're you and the people who are attracted to you are the most rational ones. But you all get ground under the wheels of this inexorable, thing that is a metaphor for society, for governments, for whatever.
And eventually they kind of get ground under too, right? I mean, they eventually sort of get rolled over.
Yeah, all you can do is say, some days you read the news and all you can do, I just want to kneel in the mud and scream like you at the end of the movie. The reason has fled, and it seems to be just madness all around us. So that's a lot of what the movie dealt with.
Right. I do think it's fascinating because if you look at the Marcia Gay Harden character, she plays that so beautifully, but this woman it's like she's been waiting for this moment forever, and she's going to take advantage of the stage that she's on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And she was a pleasure to work with. What a formidable talent she is. And it was so great because a lot of these scenes, if you really examine the scenes, there's one actor or another, even though it's very much an ensemble piece, and the weight of carrying the narrative is on all the shoulders of all these wonderful actors. There are, though, it's like watching a great team passing the ball, and suddenly, one guy or one gal will own the scene for a while, because you'll like pass the ball off to that actor and let that actor, stand up that.
By the way, that's so rare. I mean, all the actors. It was a great feeling shooting that movie because all the actors really, sort of let that kind of wash over the fact that everybody was like playing as an ensemble. That's really rare in film, and not in theater you get it more often, but in film, man, that's just a wonderful rare treat to be able to play like that, and get a group of actors that you trust enough to that you pass them the ball and they'll fucking run with it and do something great, and there's a kind of it's funny, actors are like innately built to perform that way, or at least I should say, I guess, the actors that you cast are, and a lot of actors, they're built to perform in an ensemble thing. It makes everybody better, as far as, I guess sometimes you kind of run into the opposite in Hollywood, but so it was a treat.
Also, you guys had sort of a theatrical experience. It was sort of, every take was sort of like a stage play because we weren't really shooting little pieces. We would play a scene, and some of the scenes were quite long, from beginning to end, every time we did it because of the improvisational approach to the camera work.
Oh, the camera, yeah, you never knew where the camera was going to be.
Exactly, talk about that. Because I know you loved it, and I think everybody got to love it.
Yeah, I took to it like a duck to water, huh? It's a different way of working. I've never worked like that before, and I've never worked like that since. But Frank, before we started shooting, said, "I'm going to shoot this in a way. I'm going to give 3 cameras, sometimes more, right? But at least 3. Yeah, at least 3 all the time. And we'd set up the scene, and we would take it in pretty big chunks. On a movie, usually you're lucky if you get 2 pages that in one take that you're actually doing, unless it's a long dialogue scene. But we would take big chunks of the movie, and we'd rehearse them and block them out, and then we'd start running them, and then take 2, the cameras would be in a totally different place, and the guys would be running around, and the camera guys would be grabbing actors and pulling them out of the scene so they could move in. And it was just wild, man. You kind of had to dance around the camera. He was like another character in your play, and it was really, really interesting and really effective. And part of that, I think, was because of the budgetary reasons, right? But mostly it was the style. It was that immediacy of the situation that warranted this kind of improvisatory. And I got to tell you another thing: the cameramen loved it. They loved it. They loved getting in there and creating the drama with the actor. Instead of just passively recording it, they had the freedom, and Frank was encouraging them to, if they saw something hot, if one of the actors, did something hot, they would just grab it, And as an actor, you never knew when you were going to be on. You were always on. So there was no slacking off. There was no just sort of turning it off for the other actor when you're checking your phone while the other actor's doing his thing and you're off camera. There is no off camera on this film.
Yeah, there's no, it's a wide shot and they're on my back, so I'll just kind of, sort of give 20% of my, because you never know when that wide shot behind your back suddenly turns into your close-up. So you better be on it. And the actors who love what they do were very into that. They were really into it. It was really a pleasure to do it that way.
Now, I understand that your approach to actually directing the film was inspired in part by your experience directing The Shield.
Oh, very much so, very much so. I was trying to figure out how the hell I was going to direct this, because I figured if I ever actually got somebody to put the money up, it would not be a huge amount of money. And that, of course, translates into a very short schedule, and it's a rather ambitious movie for a short schedule.
It was 22 days or something like that?
It was, what were we? We were 34 days? Was it? Well, anyway, it was
Not enough days.
It was literally half the schedule that I had ever had for a feature before. The next shortest schedule I ever had was 71 days, which is a pretty good schedule for a feature that Josh can consider. But I was such a fan of The Shield, the show The Shield, that Sean Ryan called me that his friend Devin Aquila was my
casting director, who was also casting director on that show, on The Mist, had put the pilot, the ensemble of The Shield together, so she was very good friends with Sean Ryan. Told him I was a huge fan, and he said, well, if he ever wants to come and direct one, in 7 days. I said, okay, I'd love to do that, because I love this improvisational, documentary, edgy kind of style that they were using, and I wanted to learn about that. Because all my technique was always very formalist. It was always, look at Shawshank or Green Mile, it's very, very thought out, shot by shot, and very planned, and very, painterly, I guess, if that's a word I've heard used. This felt like the polar opposite, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do a really low-budget horror movie, I'd maybe love to throw everything I know out the window and come at it from a completely different perspective that, is like completely out of my comfort zone. So I went and did The Shield, and I was one of the fastest directors they ever had. And I realized they had a secret weapon. They had these cameramen and the cinematographer who could light for that kind of quite fast thing. So I stole them. I took them for The Mist on their hiatus. I said, come do a movie with us. And these guys came and did that. And we used a number of key people from their crew. But it was the camera operators really that were and the DP that were the secret weapons. They were amazing guys and fantastic to work with.
Yeah, great attitude.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Did the ensemble actors have any opportunity to rehearse before production began? How did you guys get to know each other and kind of?
You were lucky to rehearse while I was rolling the first take. That's the kind of schedule it was, which added to the ragged, energy of the thing. Jumped in, it was right into the flames.
Yeah. I rarely have gotten the opportunity to actually rehearse a movie before we start shooting. Good luck getting, it's a miracle that anybody's schedule ever lines up to shoot a fucking movie anyway. So.
Yeah, it's true. Even your best intentions are, let's all get the cast together. That works great on Shawshank, but Hollywood has changed. Everybody's schedules are so slammed now that if I have just the table read of the script before we shoot something, and half my cast is there, I'm lucky. So where are you going to find 10 days or 2 weeks to rehearse like I did on Shawshank? Having said that, at the table read of Green Mile, I looked at all these marvelous actors and I said, okay, listen, I actually have the power to say, I want 2 weeks for us all to rehearse. Do you guys want to do this, or do you not want to do this? And Tom and all the other guys looked at each other and said, no, we're good, let's just shoot the movie. And so it was a perfect sort of lab experiment, going from Shawshank, where I had 2 weeks, to Green Mile, where I had no rehearsal. And I kind of feel like the result landed in the same place. I've got a really good movie with really great actors doing really great work. So what did that 2 weeks on Shawshank buy me, aside from I had a better idea of what the blocking would be before I landed on the set, on the day I shot that scene? I'm not sure. I think there's an argument to be made in either way. I think one of the reasons that Sidney Lumet's movies were so magnificent is he rehearsed the shit out of things. He explored the material with those actors for weeks on end before they ever rolled again. And a lot of that rehearsal wound up informing the script. They would literally work stuff in. And I thought, I'd like to be Sidney Lumet too. He's a genius. I'll give it a try. And so we rehearsed on Shawshank, and I had those days where I would encourage everybody to improv and say, okay, if we're going to do it, now's the time. Let's see what magic happens. And what we wound up doing, basically, is shooting the script word for word, because the script was solid and nobody wanted to deviate from it. And nothing that anybody really, improvised was anything but a distraction from the focused intent of the text. So, rehearse, not rehearse, I don't know, I'm good either way.
What was the experience like of actually shooting those scenes that are so intense with everyone, as everyone starts to become more and more panicked? What was sort of the day-to-day like of being there and being in that environment?
It's intense, you know, it's just a pressure cooker. And actors certainly, you know, at least part of them is living through whatever is going on. You know. But, you know, we're all very professional guys. And I remember, you know, when things get intense, then usually I think more jokes start getting thrown around and people start just trying to take some of the pressure off or that kind of thing. But, you know, my memory of it is that, you know, I had this little kid who was playing my son, and my memory was I just kept looking at him, checking on him to make sure he wasn't going to freak out so many times. And
9 years old, I think he was more of an adult.
yeah, I was. It turns out he's
Adults, yeah.
where some of the other older actors should have been keeping an eye on.
I think my favorite scene, the one that really resonates the most with me to shoot was, ultimately it's kind of a simple scene. It's shot in the shadows with flashlights back in the stock room, you know, the loading dock of the supermarket, when you brought the woman's body back, laid it down, and you guys all start to talk about what the hell do we do?
Yeah.
Do we stick around or do we leave? And it becomes basically, you know, not just a discussion about immediate need, but also an opportunity to discuss philosophy of, you know, it's where Toby Jones says, I think, you know, humankind is fundamentally insane, and here's why. And then you've got Laurie Holden saying, no, we have to believe in people, and we have, you know, they can't go that crazy. And it's like, and then there's sweet Jeff the one who's like, just right in the middle of it, he just looks at her and goes, nah, you're wrong. And then there's you going, you're going to beat the shit out of each other. We're going to fucking die. I just love that scene. I love the intensity of that scene. I love that moment where you go, like, put him in the dark, you scare the shit out of him. Like, just turn to Sterling Hayden for a moment there. And what was so cool is that was a very early scene that we shot. And we just had the cameras floating and catching it, you know, and these actors just really throwing down in this scene. And and the intensity, you know, the temperature of what was divided, they were vibrating at a higher level than human beings normally vibrate. All of these actors in that scene, Laurie Holden particularly, she didn't know what the hell she was doing.
Talk about
She was
ensemble, man.
Oh man,
that was really, you're right. I mean, that was definitely probably the highlight of the whole ensemble experience.
yeah, it really was for me. It really was for me. And she was so damn good in that scene. And she was utterly. She was having an out-of-body experience. She didn't know, you know, she didn't know whether she was doing good work or bad work or what. At the end of the day, she said, "We can reshoot that day, right? Can't we?" And I said, "You're out of your mind, because that was the best work you've done."
Yeah,
Period.
it goes to show you how much actors know about.
She didn't know that there was tears flying out of her eyes. She had no clue. And when actors transport to that degree, and when they bring each other along, it's really, you know, all you can do is see the end result on the screen, and hopefully you respond to it or not. But it's, you know, for us who were there, it's one of those really fantastically treasured memories, because it's like, you know, I'm not even sure that I have words to describe how exciting it is to see everybody, you know, taking the hill, as it were. You know, everybody is just fiendishly devoted to the goal and becoming other people. It's really great, really, really great.
Feeding off each other, you know, that's when the energy in the room becomes something that becomes a communal experience.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're doing, right? That's what this is. This is a communal experience. We have it, and then we have it here in this little dark room. Weird thing.
Well, I think that's true, because, I mean, we see the result, and, I mean, you know, I've seen this movie countless times and still found myself, you know, screaming, no, don't do that, you know, and things like that, and it just is, I mean, it's emotional, and I think that that's why people respond to movies like this, because they want to feel something, and this enables them to do that.
Thank you, that's really cool. And I think I want to feel something. That's sort of the whole point for me. And whether it's uplifted or pissed off. You know, I really want to feel something. And all too many movies, all they want to seem to do is dazzle me with their effects budget and leave me not giving a shit.
Well, that's the hard part, isn't it? Making, that's where the real work comes in, whether it's writing, directing, acting. That, it's easy to spin a top and see how many tops you could spin on top of an elephant, but it takes some skill.
It's a lot of
It's a lot of skill. But ultimately, it's not moving. And the stuff. I think that it's probably rare because it costs something. If you're going to put down that on paper, if you're going to spit out with some about how you feel about stuff that you see in the world and what's going on, then that costs something. It also feels good to do it. But I guess my point is that it's if it was easy, then everybody would do it all the time.
Talking about monsters for a second. Could you talk a little bit about the creature design for this film? And Greg Nicotero obviously was
Yeah.
to that achievement.
Yeah, Greg was very instrumental in that, and as was Bernie Wrightson, who's a very dear friend of both of ours, and of Tom's as well. We're all sort of really good pals. Tom's a huge comic book art geek, just like I am. And he's got some really nice pieces in his collection that I envy. So Bernie jumped in, Greg jumped in. Greg and I have been talking about the possibility of doing this movie pretty much since I've known him. So it was maybe 15 years of, something like
How did you guys meet?
Who, Greg and I?
You and Greg Nicotero.
I haven't the faintest clue. And we've actually talked about this. I've got a couple of friends of mine that are very, very dear friends, very close friends, and sometimes we look at each other and say, where did we meet? Because sometimes you wind up in what we do, you wind up meeting a lot of people, right? And even some cool people that you go, oh, I don't remember where the hell I met you. And if you knew that person was going to become important to you,
That was a compliment, by the way.
yeah. If you knew that person was going to become important to you in your life, would become like a best friend, I'm sure you'd pull out a notepad and make a note of it so that later, 20 years down the road or 10 years down the road or whatever, you go, I know exactly where we met. So, but I lose those details. It's all a blur, and so do they. So it's not just me, thank God. I'm sure it was mutual friends at some Fangoria convention or some, geek fest at some point or other. So in fact, I don't know, maybe David Scow, who's a mutual friend, introduced us. Either,
So have you guys been talking about the monster design for all those years before you made the movie?
No, not really. It wasn't that intense a thing. It became a that intense a thing once I realized I was actually going to get to make the movie. Every once in a while he'd show me some sketches through the years. We just like, as an exercise, say, here, what do you think of these? I go, yeah, that's nice. We're not making the movie, so. And once it became real, then we really buckled down and really had to do it as quickly as possible. And Greg's got a fantastic brain trust at K&B as well. He knows a lot of great artists. And of course, you do have a secret weapon when you got Bernie. When Bernie's a friend. In fact, there were a number of creatures in the movie that are literally Bernie's designs. The big walking
Giant dude.
Yeah, the big walking beast at the end of the movie was literally the first sketch that Bernie showed me, and I said, "That's it, do it."
And you were almost going to cut that little scene out of the movie, out of the script at one point.
I was, yeah.
And then everybody, all the actors, everybody's like, you can't cut that out. That's like the best part, man. The big giant beast walks over the landscape. You're like, yeah. Because it's like about an 8-page dialogue of a movie script.
Yeah.
You're thinking, if I can get rid of this, I can save some time here and there. What have you done?
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, if you have an idea like that, and it's the wrong idea, believe me, people will correct your thinking. Because the one thing, apparently the one most vivid memory people have of the novel is that giant walking thing, you know. And so when I pulled it out of the script, because I thought we'll never have the time or the resources to shoot this correctly, you know. Everyone went, what? You can't do that, you gotta put it in. I said, okay, I'll put it back in. That said, Cafe Effects really delivered on that creature, you know, which was, I think it's a magnificent shot and beautifully done by the effects people.
It's the birds.
It's all of the little birds following him. Like it's his own ecosystem, you know. It's so very cool. It's like a giant whale that has all the little organisms living on it. It's really fantastic. But it was very challenging to do, and the Cafe Effects did a wonderful job. Given that our special effects budget on this movie was something like $120 million less than the special effects budget on Pirates of the Caribbean 3. Yeah.
That's a lot.
I think ours was the catering budget for that effects. We literally had $4 million to spend on special effects in this movie, and we spent every dime as wisely as possible. You know, and you know, for those resources, I think these are really great. Effects. But it also, you know, listen, it also, I think, lends itself nicely to the idea of this being not just a low-budget movie, but a low-budget movie with a certain kind of vibe from a certain era.
Oh, yeah. That's why I love the black and white version on the, and I thought that was such a brilliant idea to put the black and white version on the Blu-ray. And that, I just love watching that, you know, it's just so it fits the whole mood and the tone and the style of the movie that it is. You know, and that's my favorite.
Thanks. Yeah, I do. I love it too. It kind of makes it feel like the movies from 1968. And what Steve wrote had that vibe. Steve King, when he wrote, had that vibe. It had that Burt Gordon kind of, you know, low-budget monster movie vibe to it. So then, in the service of that was really what we were always trying to do, you know, as well as keep a really vital, angry, you know, movie underneath that. We also want to deliver on the idea of this being that kind of drive-in movie, monster movie.
Yeah.
Which is an awesome combination.
Love it.
That's great. Well, I think we're going to take a couple questions from the audience.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a gentleman with a microphone, so if you could find him, that would be great.
Hi. I just wanted to say how intensely moved my boyfriend and I were with we saw this film a couple months ago, and we literally got into one of the worst fights we've had this year.
Oh no!
Over this. We were just like, no, about the ending, and like the second time we watched it, we were like holding each other. It was like the thing that brought us together. Like it's I love how a movie can make me feel that intensely. I just wanted to ask you, well, one of the points of our fight was just, was there a right choice? Do you think there could have been like a right choice, or is it just?
First of all, I think you should just, every time you see the movie, change your opinion of the ending, so that each time, you know, he hates it, the next time he loves it, you know, just to keep each other on your toes. Go ahead.
Is there another option? I mean, yeah, there's always another option. That's what sucks about life, man. It's like, I could have gone left, you know, if I'd only picked up the phone, or if I'd only made that appointment, you know, or not taken that job, then I'd be here. Or, you know, if only I did not turn down the X-Men, then I'd be a movie star. But that's what makes you go, you know, at the end of the day, did I do the right thing? Is this the right thing? And being a parent is then to take all that and just triple it, or times 10. It's like everything you do, you know, it's like you can't win. Do you punish them and put them in their room and teach them a lesson, or do you not? There's no right answer, and you never know what the right answer is going to be, and pretty much ever. So yeah, there's a lot of other ways to go. There's a lot of other choices.
Speaking for myself, my answer to that, and it's not ducking the question, believe me, it's not a cop-out answer. I love whatever your interpretation is. That's the right one. That's why I made the movie. You know, it's like, what do you think? Guess what? Except for anybody who thinks that Rick Deckard is a replicant, they're fucking wrong. But I love that that's a work of art that people debate. That they need to project into the movie their desires and their conclusions, and shouldn't art be that? Whether it's Blade Runner or a little low budget movie, there should be some margin for you to participate. And that's what I love about cinema when that happens. You know, when they give you that. I'm very grateful for it. I tend to be. Thank you.
Mr. Darabont, thank you for your body of work, everything you've done. It's just amazing.
Thank you.
As you've talked, this story has been kind of in your head, imagining for a number of years. When you brought The Walking Dead to TV, there are going to be comparisons with this movie. How did you see that The Mist and The Walking Dead very close together because they're character studies in a world of apocalypse?
Those moments do occur to you where you go, oh, geez, there are similarities, at least surface similarities. And then you just discard those concerns and say, this is its own thing, and I'm going to pursue it with as much passion as I can. I had kind of the same, kind of in a different way, the same thing when Steve King said, hey, I'm writing something called The Green Mile I think you might be interested in, but it's a prison movie, so you're probably not. You probably don't want to do another prison movie. And I said, no, you're right, I don't. Unless it happens to be a really good and different one, And when I read it, I said, okay, I guess I'll do two prison movies because the story was just so damn good. And I thought, okay, if there are similarities here, if there's surface similarities, I'm just going to ignore them. And some guy chews my ass on the internet. Oh, so be it. They're going to do it anyway. I'm kind of doing the same thing right now with. I have the privilege of doing a series for TNT called Lost Angels, and it's about 1947 Los Angeles, the cops, the corruption in the police department, the mob, the LA mob, Mickey Cohen, and all that stuff. And it's like suddenly gangster SWAT comes out. I'm like, like I'm not even watching that movie because if there are similarities, I don't want to freak myself out from. Picking the path that I think is correct for this particular project, and nor will I shy away from any LA Confidential vibe either, because that movie is one of my favorite movies. Brilliant film, I love it, love it, love it. But if I let myself get too reverential, then I'll never wind up making anything, I guess, because there's always something else out there. So when it came to Walking Dead versus The Mist, I said, okay, it'll be what it'll be. And honestly, I never really did compare the similarities, although I'm sure they're there. I do know one thing: I wanted this asshole to be the star of The Walking Dead.
I was about to say, because you have 3 actors from this film.
Oh yeah.
Well, I brought The Walking Dead to HBO where I had a job, right? I had the job at HBO then.
You did. Well, by the time I got greenlit, yes, you did. You had hung.
Yeah.
Which is why he couldn't do it.
Yeah, but I brought it to HBO and I said I want to do both.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to convince them for a year already that we should do that project. So you weren't the first one they heard that from. Believe me, no. Yeah, I thought Tom would be awesome for that. And because job too. Because I do love working with when I really vibe with an actor as a talent and as a person, I love to work with them again. If there's any kind of role that suits them, and sometimes I'll tailor what I'm writing to that person because I want to have that same experience. Tom was the natural choice for me. For that, and when he became unavailable, I went, oh, I'm doomed, I'm screwed, I'll never find anybody who's good for this part. And of course, Andy Lincoln came in and read for it, and he's, brilliant and perfect, and I love and adore him. So that's just the alternate universe reality that didn't happen, because he did Hunt, which was a very good show, but they didn't really, But after 3 years, they just didn't want to do it anymore, I guess.
Yeah, not hung anymore. One all lasted though.
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Hi, huge fan. The Green Mile makes me bawl my eyes out every single time I watch it. But I just want to know, this is probably a question you get all the time, but any desire to do another Stephen King adaptation, and if so, anything in particular?
Yeah, I would love it. Listen, that's I'm so happy to go back to, because for the very reason we were talking earlier about what makes a story great, what makes it go beyond just the spectacle of what your eyes are seeing. Steve is a master at making you care and give a shit. And, he is really one of the all-time great storytellers. I would so be happy to go back to that well. And we flirted with a couple of things here and there, but nothing really that's been a done deal. He was sweet enough to offer me the Dark Tower. Oh no. This was before all the other, development had happened with Ron Howard and whatever's been going on with that. He called me up and he said, I'm thinking of letting the rights to this be taken, and if there's anybody I would rather give it to, it would be you. And I said, no way. For one thing, I don't want to spend the next 10 years of my life writing this only to fail at adapting it, because it's such a mental exercise. That whole saga is so internal and tricky stuff. How do you even film it? So I thanked him very kindly, and I said, I love you for even asking, but let someone else take that one. Write me something simpler next time. Thank you.
I think this is our last question.
Actually, more of a comment. I'm not really a horror fan at all, and I like the creatures, but anything is always the humanity in it. Like you guys said, if you don't care about the characters, it doesn't matter. And I found myself caring about you very much and everybody in it. And I just want to say the humanity of everything you always do always comes through.
Thank you so much. That's really, really kind. Thank you. That's really nice. You want to do one more question?
Sure, why not?
Why not?
Okay. Hey, yes, thanks so much. I'm a big fan of both of you. Tom, I love Dirty Laundry. That's great. This is sort of related to what we were just talking about, actually, but I noticed that the first painting that David is working on is of the Dark Tower. So now I know that Stephen King considers that to be sort of his magnum opus. Was that decision sort of a love letter to just Stephen, or is that sort of a consolation for turning it down?
It was what that was. Honestly, was a little love letter to to Steve and to the Dark Tower series, which as a literary work is one of my favorites. It's amazing stuff, and it's also a love letter to Drew Struzan, who I wrote and actually doing the art. Drew's also a very, very dear friend of both of ours.
And who gave me painting lessons so that I wouldn't look like an idiot when I was painting the Drew Struzan piece. So after the screening, I said, so Drew, how did I do it? He sucked. That's not how to do it.
You look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an opportunity to just blow a little kiss to some people and some work that we love. And you do look for those opportunities, especially in a movie like this. There's a huge spindle rack of paperback books that the guy on fire goes tripping over and goes over, and that was all Stephen King books. You don't point the camera right at it, just go, hey, look at the homage. But it's fun to know that it's there, and maybe out of the corner of your eye in a shot you might notice, his name.
We got some Bernie Wrightson comic books in there too.
Oh yes,
and on the rack in the drugstore.
That's right, and Mike Mignola.
And one of my comics, Bad Planet, which was the Bernie Wrightson cover in the drugstore on the comic rack.
That's right.
They're like all our.
And Eric Powell.
Yeah.
Who's also
the Goon.
The Goon. Yeah.
The Goon's on there.
We had Hellboy comics
Hellboy on there.
and
Bad
Goon.
Planet.
Why don't you grab the Punisher, man?
And by the way, Eric Powell visited the set. I don't know if you ever see the DVD, there's some good sort of behind the scenes stuff. One of the webisodes we did, there's a little thing with Eric who visited the set because he lives in that part of the country. And during the earthquake, our huge big budget earthquake, where basically it consisted of people shaking shells, guys with fishing line pulling the lights to make them swing, and like people throwing like, shit over the lens so that it comes falling. It actually looks like a rocking good earthquake, in my opinion. And they're shaking the camera, it's like an old Star Trek episode. People are throwing themselves around. There's Eric Powell shaking one of those supermarket shells, having the time of his life. So we have brilliant behind-the-scenes cameos like Eric Powell.
So you can still manage to have some fun even though the world is ending.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, most of all, I think.
Terrific. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you all.